Unit 5, Lesson 4 works with money and debts. So in 4.1, Priya wants to buy 3 tickets for a concert. She has earned $135 and each ticket costs $50. She borrows the rest of the money she needs from a bank and buys the tickets. How could you represent the amount of money that Priya has after buying the tickets? So we know that each ticket costs $50 and she needs 3 of them. Oh. 50 times 3, which is $150. And when she only has $135, so she has to borrow money from the bank. So she's able to pay $135. So that means she needs to borrow $15 from the bank. So it wants to know how we could represent the amount of money that she has. Well, she's used all of her money, but she borrowed money from the bank. So that means she actually has negative $15 because she's in debt. She owes the bank $15. How much more money will Priya need to earn to pay back the money she borrowed from the bank? To pay back the bank, she needs to earn $15. And that would put her at $0. So she needs to earn $15. How much money will she have after she pays back the money she borrowed from the bank? Well, I just answered that on number 2. So if she had negative $15 and then she paid the bank $15, she owed the bank $15 and then paid them $15, she now has no money. .2. At the beginning of the month, Chiron had $24 in his school cafeteria account. It says use a variable to represent the unknown quantity in each transaction below and write an equation to represent it. Then represent each transaction on a number line and then find what is the unknown quantity in each case. So we have to use a variable. We have to write an equation. Then we have to represent each transaction on a number line. And then we have to find the unknown quantity. Number 1, in the first week, he spent $16 on lunches. So first we need a variable. So we can just use X. So we'll put X as our variable. Wants to know how much money was in his account. So our X represents the money in the account after he spends $16 on lunches. Write an equation. Well, we know that he started with $24. And then he spent $16. So if you spend $16, that would be a negative 16. And he's left with how much money? We don't know. So there's where our variable comes in. Then it says to represent each transaction on a number line. So we start out with $24. So that would be 0 to 24. And then he spent $16. So spending money means I'm moving to the left. So left $16. So there's 4, 8, 12, 16. And that puts us at 8. So that means that my X equals $8. So Chiron now has $8 in his account. Number 2, it says he then deposited some more money and his account balance was now $28. So how much did he deposit? We can use X on all of these. So he starts out with $8. So he currently has $8. He deposited money. So if you deposit money, that's a positive number. So he deposited an amount of money that we do not know. So there's our variable, X. But we know after we deposit that money, his account balance has to show $28. So we got to figure out how much money he deposited. So he started with $8. And he deposited a certain amount of money, and then he ended up at $28. So we got to figure out, what does he need to add to end up at $28? Well, we know 8 plus 20 would give us 28. So that tells me that he deposited $20. So he has $28 in his account now, but then he spends $34 on lunches the next week. So he currently has $28 from up here. And then he spends $34, so that would be a negative 34 because it's being spent. And we need to know what his new account balance is. So he starts out with $28. And then he spends $34, so I have to move to the left. So there's $28, 30, 32, 34. Which lands me at negative $6. So he now has negative $6 in his account. On number 4, it says, then he deposited enough money to pay off his debt to the cafeteria. So how much did he deposit? So for our equation, he started with a balance of negative $6. And we know he had to add an amount. And after he pays off his debt, he would be at $0. So looking at your number line. Okay, so from 0 to negative 6 for a starting balance. And we know he has to pay off his balance, which puts him back at 0. So that means he had to pay $6. Number 5 says, explain why it makes sense to use a negative number to represent Chiron's account balance when he owes money. So if Chiron has to pay a positive amount of money in order to get back to $0, then that tells me that in order to move in the positive direction on a number line and end up at 0, then that means I was down here in the negatives. So that's why I would want to use a negative number. 4.3 says here's a bank statement. So if you notice, if you may not have seen one before, but this just shows each description of any type of transaction. So starting on October 3rd, this person, Andre's balance was $39.87. On October 5th, he wrote a check for $28.50. So that's under the withdrawal column because that's coming out of his account. He's paying that amount. So now his balance is $11.37. Then on October 6th, he made a deposit of $45, which means he's putting money into his account, which makes our balance go up. So on number 1, it says if we put withdrawals and deposits in the same column, so here we have 2 separate columns. We have our deposits on one side and withdrawals on the other. How could we represent deposits and withdrawals if there was only one column? So we could represent deposits as positive numbers and withdrawals since that's kind of like purchases and taking money out, that would need to be negative numbers. Number 2 says Andre withdraws $40 to buy a music player. So right now his current balance is negative $62.47. And then he takes money out to buy a music player. So that would be a negative $40 because it's a withdrawal. So negative $62.42 plus a withdrawal of $40 means he now is in the negative of $102.47. Number 3 says if Andre deposits $100 in this account, will he still be in debt? So if his account balance is negative $102.47 and he deposits $100, think about your number line. So on a number line, if you're down here at negative $102.47 and you add $100, you're still going to be in the negative because you've got to add $102.47 just to get back to zero. So yes, he would still be in debt because his balance would still be a negative number. And then when we compare our numbers, so negative $102.47, the absolute value of that tells me the value of that number is $102.47. But that value is larger than the value of the amount, absolute value of the amount that we are adding. Therefore, he would still be in debt. So banks use positive numbers to represent money that gets put into an account and negative numbers to represent money that gets taken out of an account. So when you put money into an account, it's called a deposit. And then if you take money out of the account, it is called a withdrawal, and we represent that with a negative number. People also use negative numbers to represent debt. So if you take out more money from your account than you put in, then you owe the bank money and your account balance will be a negative number. For example, if you have $200 in your bank account and then you write a check for $300, you will owe the bank $100 and your account balance will be negative $100. So for example, if you start out with no money in your account, here's a positive 50, so that means I'm adding $50, which makes my balance now $50. Now that I have $50 in my account, and then I have $150, and it's positive, so it's another deposit, that means I'm now at $200. And here we see a negative 300, so that means it's a withdrawal. So $200, and if I take $300 out, I now owe the bank $100. So in order to get my balance, to get out of debt, I would have to make a deposit of $100, which would put me at $0.